All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Free. I'm Ryan. I'm the pastor and executive director here. This is Karie. She is the associate executive director here. And it is so good to be with you all tonight. And to those of you joining us online, we're glad you're here. We're glad you're part of this community. And this is a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. And what we do here is break the silence of addiction. We create space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. And there's always one thing we don't do. You all can shout it out on a count of three. 1, 2, 3. We don't do shame. Karie, there are some things that we do that you're going to tell us about. Take it away.
Hello and welcome. If you are new with us and this is your first time, we would love to connect with you and get to know you a little bit better. Just outside of these doors, after service, you can get a welcome bag. Inside the welcome bag, you'll get a sample of the fresh roasted wagon coffee, as well as our Connect card, some free swag, and it'll get you connected to us so you can receive our newsletter, connect with us for social media, all the different ways to get connected, including our home team, which is our next announcement. So tomorrow, David is the head of our home team, him and his wife, Erica. They are hosting a barbecue at their house at
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock. And it's going to be an informational kind of community event where you can learn who and what we are, what the home team is, how to get connected. There's going to be great food, fun, connection, and a clean grill.
That's great, David.
So if you want some clean grill cooked food, please, if you do receive our newsletter, there's also a link on our newsletter. If you don't, you can. There's QR codes throughout the community, which will get you connected to the home team. So if you have any questions,
or talk to David.
Talk to a staff member.
Yes, and if you're wondering what home team is, it's a great way to volunteer in this community. Home team is in charge of making sure this place feels like home. So if you're looking to volunteer, it's a great way to volunteer. Hit the barbecue tomorrow, 11 o'clock.
And then one last little fun tidbit.
Yes.
Ryan likes to take credit for this. However, if you notice, he's actually here tonight and didn't have anything to do with this. But our sober softball team,
which I played on 3 years ago.
3 years ago. But this year, the team where Ryan wasn't on, they actually scored second place in their division today. The reason Noelle isn't here today and a couple of our other community members is they are rocking it on the softball field. In this heat, they played, I think it was 3 games today.
Yes, I just got a message. We won that game. We play tomorrow at 10. If we win that game, we play in the championship at 11. Yeah. So root on our free softball team. Go team.
And when you see them, give them a high five. So good job, sober softball team. And that's it.
All right. Thank you, Karie. All right, y'all. Well, the way we get started here on a Saturday night, if you're new with us, is we start with celebrations. We lift up the good. We start with the good. Maybe you're celebrating a sobriety anniversary or some sort of birthday or whatever the new thing is in your life, in your recovery. We celebrate it all here. We take 3 minutes for this. Karie has a mic on this side. You could just raise up your hand. Jerome has one on this side. If you're online, drop your celebrations in the Facebook comments or YouTube comments. We'll join with you there, and this 3 minutes is yours.
I'm Kai, and I'm celebrating 505 days free of fentanyl.
Woo-woo! Free of fentanyl 505. Way to go, Kai.
I'm Zach, I'm an addict, and I'm celebrating 35 days clean and sober.
35 days, way to go, Zach. Congratulations, brother.
I'm Martin, and I'm celebrating 47 days clean and sober.
47 days, way to go, dude.
My name is Joshua, and this time last year I was still in prison, but I just started the new job as a kitchen manager at a place right up the street on Pearl, Louisiana called Chook Chicken. So, yeah.
Way to go, Joshua. Glad you're here, brother.
Hello, I'm Monty, and once again, it is my pleasure to give my friend Mary her 2-year coin.
2 years. Way to go, Mary. Congratulations.
I'm Mary, and I'm going to celebrate friends that celebrate me. I'm so thankful that Monty made that a moment. Thank you.
All right, way to go, Mary. You can pass that chip around if you want. Give us some good mojo. Others. The good.
I just want to say thank you to everyone who came to the art show last night. Over 100 people came. The artists got to sell their work, and I think the most beautiful part is their parents came and they got to see them as artists and not all the things that come with being an addiction. So you got to see them in a different light. So it was a beautiful event. Thank you all for coming.
What a beautiful thing. Thank you, Darren. Congratulations, buddy. I know it takes a lot of work to put on those events, but well worth it. Anyone else?
I'm David. I'm just celebrating my son turns 30 tomorrow.
Son turns 30. Happy 30th to your son. Well, I'll piggyback on that, David. We have, we have 4 kids. 3 of the birthdays are in February, but 1 is in August, and it's today. And Selah, our oldest daughter, turns 14 years old today. Yes, it goes in a blink of an eye. Happy birthday, baby, if you're watching all the way down in Florida. She's visiting family in Florida. Anyone else?
I'm Jerome. I have 1.
Yes.
I won't be here next week. I entered my first professional strongman event. I'll be competing next Saturday, novice level, but it's time to start pushing myself physically to see what I'm capable of. So,
Jerome, good luck, man. The strong man.
Can I just do one more quick one?
Yes.
I know typically in this community we don't do frenzies. However, tomorrow, God willing, all is well when I get home, I will have 17 years of marriage tomorrow. So
17 years
17
of marriage.
years.
Congratulations, Karie. Don't go screwed up tonight, since you mentioned it. All right, shall we join with our online people?
Yes. Do you want to go first?
Why don't you go first?
Okay. This is from our friend Brian Graves. Celebrating my 2nd hip replacement. I'm excited to get back to a healthy life.
All right, Brian, we'll celebrate
Congratulations,
that.
Brian.
Christy says, yesterday was my wonderful husband Justin's birthday. I had a great day with him and the kiddos, and I'm so grateful for all the things that brought him into my life. We'll celebrate that, Christy. Happy birthday to Justin.
This is from Mike Anderson, celebrating the gifts of my sobriety by spending the next 3 days with my grandchildren.
That's a good way to spend it. Congratulations, Mike. Jen Deckard says, celebrating that mom is home, healing from the fall she had in the parking lot at the mall. She broke her nose in 2 places, multiple fractures, small brain bleed. She has healed amazingly, and we are grateful for the couple that stopped to help her. God is so good. We're celebrating that with you, Jen. Glad mom is doing all right.
This is from Damien. 9 months tomorrow.
Way to go, Damien.
Congratulations.
Julie says, I'm celebrating over 120 days today. Way to go, Julie. Congratulations.
Right.
Keep on doing it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Karie, for joining me up here. Well, y'all, we are in this series called Great Events. It's a 6-week series, and tonight we are in week 4 of 6. Take a look.
In the hearts of those seeking sobriety, a higher power was at work. Guided by faith, they found the fellowship they craved. With each step, their bond with Him grew stronger, and great events began to unfold for them and others. Embrace sobriety and witness the great events that await you.
You know, when it comes to being made new in our recovery, well, there's a couple of lines that stand out from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. They stand out to me. The first line is from page 74. It's in this part of the book that's talking about what happens after a fifth step, and they tell us this: we can now look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. And the second line that stands out comes just a few pages later on page 84, and it's in the part that's talking about what's often referred to as the ninth step promises, and it says, we will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. Now, y'all, take a moment and reflect, if you are in recovery, that today in recovery, you can be alone with yourself up here. You can be alone with your thoughts and have peace. Gift. I mean, take a moment and reflect that today in recovery, you are able to handle those situations that you used to drink over, used to use over. And today in recovery, you can not only handle the situation, but you don't have to pick up and you can actually keep your sanity. Gift. And see, I don't know about y'all, but these are great events in my life and in my recovery. Proof that a new power is flowing in and through you. But let's also be honest. We can still struggle, can't we? Yes. I mean, we can so easily give up our peace willingly. We can so easily sometimes baffle the situations which used to handle us. I have experience in this, maybe you do too. Do you know, several years ago, the entire church staff where I was serving as pastor, we all received this email, and it was from a gentleman who was letting us know that he was leaving the church after many years. I kept this email, and I'm going to share a couple of lines with you. Here's what he said. Quote, I struggled with the very casual attire of Ryan in particular. That's me. In my career, I always wore a tie and coat, except on casual Fridays. We need to bring casual Fridays back, don't we? And then jeans were absolutely forbidden. If we were in a meeting with a client on casual Fridays, we wore a coat and tie. Now, y'all, this was at a time in my life where I actually wore nice jeans to church. There was no holes in them. I even did crazy things like a button up, and sometimes I would get real rowdy and tuck it in. I never wore a hat to church. And this was also during a time, this was early in my ministry, and I gave my energy to that email. Man, this one, it had me all tied up. It sent me into this weird sort of shame spiral, and I so badly wanted to respond to him because my ego told me, you gotta win him over. You gotta get him to like you. Oh man, I was so tied up over this email. 2 weeks after I received it, I was at a lunch meeting with my friend and mentor, and I pulled out my phone at this lunch meeting, and I started reading him this email. And do y'all know what he did? Midway through, he breaks into this belly laugh. And I'm like, dude, I don't get this. You're my mentor. Why are you laughing? I asked him, why are you laughing? He said, because Ryan, isn't it interesting? I mean, it's interesting that he took the time to craft these words in an email and then send that email to you and a group of people. And Ryan, if you can't laugh at that, this job is going to eat you up. And y'all, I can tell you, is my mic still on, by the way? Can y'all still hear me? I can tell you it took me some time to see it. It took doing some of that inner work, the hard inner work. But I was at some point able to see that these words in that email actually had nothing to do with me. It was projected. My casual attire threatened the way he thought church should be done, but it had nothing to do with me. Now, did it deserve my grace and understanding? Yes, absolutely. Did it deserve my energy? No. Y'all, I mention this because it is the one that will always get in the way. It's the one that will always try to sneak in and try to convince you to give up your peace. It's the one that so many of us struggle with, and that is criticism. Yeah, see, what do we do when we hear criticism about ourselves? How are we to be people of grace and understanding and at the same time maintain our peace? How do we handle these situations? Anyone here ever been criticized? Yeah. Anyone here ever breathe oxygen on a regular basis? Yeah, we've all been there. Criticism, you can feel it, can't you? When you hear those words about you, your body reacts to it. Your body has a response. Some of you, you'll feel it in your limbs. Your limbs will get a bit weaker. Maybe your heart starts to race a little more. Now, how many of you feel it in your face? Yeah, you hear those words and you get hot face. All of a sudden, your face feels hot and you're like, oh my goodness, what's going on here? Why is my face turning hot? I bet it's getting red too. Yeah, you can feel it. And you're all buckled up and your first impulse will tell you, and always be careful with the first impulse. The first impulse will tell you, you have to respond to that email. And if you quickly respond to that email, I can promise you it's not going to be your finest work. You have to respond and you go into, I got to protect myself. I got to defend myself. I'm in survival mode. And I can tell y'all from experience, someone who doesn't have all this stuff nailed, by the way, I can tell you that somewhere along the way, the whole thing has to shift if we are to maintain our peace. So let's talk about criticism for a moment, shall we? Now, there's two kinds of criticism. There's probably many more that you could Google and find all sorts of forms of criticism. But the two basic ones, and this is Psychology 101, the two basic forms of criticism are first, constructive criticism. In constructive criticism, I try to put some basic words to it. It's the person sharing it cares for you and the bigger picture. You generally trust this person or those people. It may not feel good in the moment, but after some reflection, you see that it can actually make you a better person. Now, you also have projected criticism. The person sharing projected criticism feels threatened. The critique generally comes off as a rant, and the rant has nothing to do with you, but everything to do with their insecurities and their perceived threat. And let's just start here. Because you are a steward of your energy, and you are absolutely fascinating. You lose anywhere between 50 and 150 strands of hair each day. You shed somewhere around 10 billion flakes of dead skin each day, which, by the way, makes up about 90% of all household dust, so you might want to go home and vacuum. Did you know that every 28 days you get completely new skin? Every 9 years your body is completely renewed, which means you are constantly changing and dying and shedding and renewing. And did you know your body is made up of around 75 trillion cells? Every one of those cells containing hundreds of thousands of molecules. Each one of those cells contains approximately 6 feet of DNA, which means you, my brothers and sisters, are just one big ball of energy. And you are a steward of that energy. So when you hear criticism about yourself, you will have to ask the question, is this worthy of my energy? And the answer to that question can't always be no. Some is worthy. But not all criticism is worthy of your energy. Projected criticism is never worthy of your energy. If you give your energy to it, you are willingly giving away your peace. And the truth is, some of you have been internalizing criticism from people who are projecting on you, and it has nothing to do with you, and you are giving away your peace, and it's sending you to this place of shame. And sometimes the appropriate response is, isn't that interesting? and you laugh and you keep going. You know, about a month ago, we received a Google review, which is public, by the way. You can get on Google and see all the reviews of free. We received a Google review. We'll put it on a screen for you so you can see it. Since it's public, I can read it with you this evening. It's a 1-star review given by Jane Doe. Wanted to stay anonymous, but I can share it with you. Here's what she says. I'm honestly amazed at how many vulnerable people get sucked into these cults. Yeah, that's y'all. This is a business, period, from the bougie coffee shop to the merch, to the ornate church construction, to the little tip jar. Jane, it's a dip jar, not a tip jar. I'll tell you about it later. Where you can dip your credit card into their machine and they can automatically withdraw $20. This is about money. And that's quite obvious to the average healthy person. And now she gets personal. And why do these places have to be so cringe? It's like these pastors all went to the same cringe pastor school. It's called seminary, Jane. Over the top and obnoxious. I guess that's how human beings like their cults. We do like a good cult, don't we? Now, I was reading this review when I was sitting in martial arts class with my 8-year-old boy, Breck, and he's doing his martial arts, and I'm reading this review because it came up on my email. And I have to ask the question as I'm sitting there reading this, is this worthy of my energy? I have to ask that question. Sometimes I get it wrong, right? So I have to get input from other people. So I screenshot it. I send it to my wife, Tammy. I send it to a board member. I sent it to a couple of staff members. And guess what? They all said essentially the same thing. Isn't that interesting? And laugh, and you keep going. Yeah. But see, the hard truth is, and Jane reminds us the hard truth, not everyone is going to like you. Not everyone is going to hear you the way you hope to be heard. They're not going to perceive you the way you hope to be perceived. They are not going to pick up what you were laying down, no matter how good you think it is. And see, it's okay. And I'm speaking to myself here. Ryan, it is okay. It's okay. The quicker you can make peace with that, the more peace you'll maintain. And listen, y'all, if you struggle with this, if you struggle with needing to be liked by everyone, if you struggle with how to handle criticism, know that you are not alone. In fact, it's a very ancient struggle. Do you know near the end of Jesus' ministry, he was hanging out with his friends. They were called disciples. And he says to them, he says, y'all know I'm not going to be here forever. In fact, the way this thing is headed, I'm going to be crucified on a Roman execution stake called a cross because I've caused a bit of mischief. And when I'm gone, I want you all to keep going to the different towns and villages. I want you to keep spreading the message of God's love for all people, not just some people, but all people. I want you to keep doing the things that we've been doing together. Keep going. And I imagine in that conversation, Matthew's Gospel, chapter 10, I imagine one of the disciples raises his hand and says, but Jesus, I mean, what if we go into these towns and villages and the people don't like us? Like, what if they don't even welcome us into our home? I mean, that's going to be hard. What do we do? And Jesus drops this line. If anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, you leave that home or town and you shake the dust off your feet. Jesus had boundaries. In other words, you are a steward of your energy. You want to maintain your peace. Sometimes the appropriate response is to shake the dust off your feet and keep going. And isn't it interesting? Jesus was always hanging out with people. Most of the time he was with people on the margins of society, people who've been kicked around, they've been kicked out of religion. Jesus was healing and loving, and he was always showing them this thing called the kingdom of God. And sometimes Jesus needed to get away. He needed some rest. So he would escape to a quiet place for some prayer and meditation. And when he did, the crowds immediately began to complain and criticize. Check it out, Luke's Gospel, chapter 4. At daybreak, after spending the whole entire day with them before, Jesus, departed and went into a deserted place. And the crowds were looking for him, and when they reached him, they wanted to prevent him from leaving them. But he said to them, I must proclaim the good news of the kingdom of God to the other cities also, for I was sent for this purpose. And that's a fascinating story, isn't it? Jesus tries to leave to find a quiet place. And the crowds, they begin to offer their projected criticism. No, Jesus, you can't leave us. I mean, you can't just go get some rest and then go do a new thing. And what about us, Jesus? Do you not love us anymore? And Jesus ignores it. He kicks the dust from his feet and he keeps on going. Why? It wasn't because he didn't love them. It wasn't because he didn't care for them. But Jesus knew who he was and why he was here. And do you remember the first week of this series? The importance of you knowing who you are and why you're here. Some people will see you doing good in the world. They'll see you having an impact in the world, and the only thing they'll be able to do is criticize. Criticize. And you will have to ask yourself in that moment, what is underneath the words that they're actually saying? What's behind it? And if you do that, you'll soon see that so much of the criticism, so much of it is very simple. It's, dude, I don't understand how you leap. Because all I can do is see myself and see all the times I didn't leap. All the fear that I was stuck in. All the moments of failure that kept me from taking the next leap and trying to do something new in life. And you just leap. And if I can just keep pointing at you, then I don't have to look within. You see, projected criticism is never worthy of your energy, and you are a steward of that big ball of energy that you are. You want to protect your peace? Stop reacting. Pause. Get curious. Invite God in. Because see, the goal with all criticism is that you become a non-reactive presence in the world. And listen, that doesn't mean that you get to walk away from all forms of criticism, because some of it is indeed worthy of your energy when it's constructive. Did you know to be ordained clergy, to be an ordained elder in the United Methodist Church, well, you have to go through some steps. You first have to have your bachelor's degree from college, and then from there you have to go into get your master's of divinity degree. It's a 3-year program in seminary, or as Jane likes to call it, cringe school. And then after that, you're under the supervision of what's called the Board of Ordained Ministry, and you're writing lots of papers for them, even though you already did that in college and in seminary. And then you're meeting with this interview team that's part of the Board of Ordained Ministry, and they're asking you lots of questions, and they're having you explain things in your papers, and they're offering critique. Sometimes it's cloaked in feedback. And did you know June of this summer marked 10 years since I've been ordained in full connection, an ordained pastor in the United Methodist Church. 11 years ago, yeah, we can celebrate that. I say that because that was 10 years ago. 11 years ago, I received an email from my interview team. And man, the first half of this email, it made me feel so fuzzy inside. They said such kind and nice words. I mean, they had glowing remarks to say, and we're recommending Ryan to continue towards full ordination, and he's got lots of ideas and new, fresh perspectives for the church, and the church so desperately needs it because it's dying. And they said very kind things, and then I got to the second half of the email. And you all know, sometimes that second half, it like negates the whole first half. You can't hear anything good. I got to the second half, my eyes went blurry, and I couldn't see anything. I kept that email too. Here's part of what they said in their critique. Yeah, if recommended, areas for additional growth during provisional membership. And I'll just tell you all my initial impulse. Be careful with your initial impulse. It's very dangerous. The first one, in his written requirement, he needs to be more specific and more in-depth and more serious with his theology. Who, that one hurt. Because in my mind, I'd given my life to this stuff. I actually love theology. I love the study. I love the reading. I love the talking about it. That one hurt. He needs to be more invested with the process. Yeah, you know what the problem is? You need to be more invested with the process because I've done everything you've asked me to do, and now you just need to pass me. To have Ryan write a paper on orders with minimum pages of 3, and it's going to be due by June 1st. Now, you see, I ain't doing anything by June 1st. It's May. I'm not writing another paper. I already did that. You tell them. And then this last one, we're going to change Ryan's mentor. I liked my mentor. We're going to change Ryan's mentor by assigning someone which is more experienced in a traditional church setting to help him. We already talked to Betty about that. Well, you tell Betty, always be careful of that initial impulse. Because see what I learned, and it took me some time, y'all. It doesn't happen like in the immediate. I had to get up and I had to read this email, then I would pace the kitchen. And I would read it again, then pace the kitchen. And then I would pick up the phone and call someone and vent and say, can you believe they said these things about me? But what I can tell you is that interview team, they actually cared about me and they could see the bigger picture that I couldn't always see. I can tell you that criticism did not feel good in the moment, but after I had time to reflect, I could see that the opportunity was there to be a better person, a better pastor, a better leader. I couldn't see it at the time, but it takes a bit. I could see that their criticism was actually reasonable, wasn't it? I mean, they were saying to me, we want you to go more in depth with how you arrived at this theology. I was doing the bare minimum because I was tired of the process. It had been so many years. I just wanted to get through it. And they're saying, we want to know how you arrived there. That's reasonable. They were saying to me, we need you to invest in the process. We're investing in you. Yes, I know it's long, but we need you to keep investing. Reasonable critique. They were saying to me, Ryan, your ideas are good. We want to learn more. We can't wait to see what happens. But we need you, before you start creating new structures, at least understand the current structures. Pretty reasonable criticism, and I did that. You see, some criticism is worthy of your energy. Constructive criticism is worthy. And I'll close with this. If you are one who leans towards the negative, you're a bit of an Eeyore. It's easy for you to spot the negative. In fact, you can't help but just offer critique and criticism to everything and everyone around you, including yourself. Well, I would encourage you to remember that you too are a steward of that energy. Perhaps consider putting more energy into loving people rather than just shredding people. Choose wisely where and when you criticize. And don't ever allow tearing others down to become a way for you to get some sort of false sense of peace. Because it will never be real peace if you are getting it while standing on the neck of someone else. It might feel good in a moment, but it never offers lasting peace. You know, there's a book in the New Testament written by the Apostle Paul. It's a book called Romans, a letter to the Romans, to the church in Rome. And man, Paul was addressing areas of division in the community. He was explaining what it means to do life together, to live together, to love one another. And he says to them, he says, don't you all get it? We are all one body. Yes, we have many parts to this body. Some of you are the hands, some of you are the feet, and we need it all to make the thing work. And he says, because of God's grace given to you, you each have different gifts. We need those gifts, but they're different. Stop comparing yourself to others. When you step into the game of comparison, you will always lose. It always takes your joy. Stop comparing, start loving, and stop tearing each other apart. He says, remember, because of God's grace, we're all God's kids. And then he says this to him: if possible, to the best of your ability, live at peace with all people. To the best of your ability, live at peace with yourself and all people. So what I would ask you, my brothers and sisters, how are you using your energy to be a peacekeeper for yourself? And how are you using your energy to be a peacemaker for the lives of others? You know, each Saturday I try to pick a song to play that has some meaning to it, and it's in alignment with the topic. And this week, man, nothing was coming to me. Even this morning, I woke up, I didn't have a song for tonight, and so here I am at the gym this morning, and I just had this thought come over me, like, Ryan, okay, you big ball of energy, what's just one of your favorite songs? Play that song. What's one of the top 5 songs ever written in history? Well, it dawned on me. Smashing Pumpkins, Disarm. If you disagree with that, that's your opinion. There will be some criticism for you, projected criticism. One of the best songs ever written, one of the best songs ever performed, Billy Corgan, the lead singer of Smashing Pumpkins. He wrote this song. You know, he was suffered through a lot of abuse as a kid, a lot of criticism from his parents. And I don't know, I can't step into his brain and say exactly why he wrote this song, but in hearing it, I think he's making peace with the past. He's making peace with the criticism. Here's one of the top 5 songs ever written, Disarm by Smashing Pumpkins. Take a moment and reflect.
Hello? Hello. This one's a little bit harder for me, friends. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes when Ryan picks these songs, I have no idea what he's going to play. And sometimes he has no idea what our guest storyteller is about to share with us. So that song speaks about your inner child and kind of repairing those deep core wounds that most of us don't like talking about. Some of us drowned out with drugs and alcohol or other people, because if we can't fix our childhood, we want to fix other people and then we'll be okay. I had the privilege of sitting down with our next guest storyteller. He is new to our community because he doesn't live here. However, he is brave enough both on the internet and in his profession to talk about those wounds. What I also love about this community is that we really stand by those words of we don't do shame. And what we're about to talk about is a little bit harder sometimes than what we typically talk about, because this goes down to those primal, deep, dark fears that we don't want to tell anyone. So I hope you all remember that we really stand by those words if we don't do shame, and that it takes each and every one of us to heal in community. So I hope that you can open your hearts and welcome to the stage Karie Latta. Hello, Karie.
How are you?
Good. I first wanted to start by an apology, because I know on the screen it actually says sober date of May 2023. I'd like to kind of change the wording, if you will. I know we're used to kind of seeing addict or loved one, but we're going to change that word to recovery, and I'd like you to kind of explain why that word matters, and if you could give us a context of what a process addiction is and why you're sitting up here.
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me. It's really good to be here. Yeah, my story is a little bit different. Substance abuse and addiction to substances was never my story. This will sort of be fleshed out more as we talk, but my story begins in a family that didn't use substances but were massively dysfunctional. And the addiction that I would step into as a way to cope with those early life wounds was love and sex addiction. So it's hard when you're talking about like love addiction especially, it's hard to put a sobriety date on that. The process addiction part of it comes in, and this is both for love addiction and sex addiction. You know, I guess it's not like picking up and taking a drink. It's all the steps that lead up to the picking up and taking the, well, with the sex addiction, love addiction, it's everything that goes in to the process of pursuing that thing which I've used to numb my emotions or to try to heal poorly the wounds that I developed as a kid. So it's not just a matter of abstinence or abstaining. It's not just, you know, sobriety from a behavior. It's really working through all the ways that I sort of in process live out my addiction. So sex and love addiction is very much a process addiction.
Which I know our loved ones in the audience can relate, because you don't physically see a loved one consuming a substance, right? So I'm sure the loved ones out there can relate to that lack of visual evidence of what you're quote unquote consuming.
Right.
But if you could kind of back up, because what we found in last service is we're not all that different. And just because we might be consuming different substances, it's kind of back to what Ryan was talking about, that, you know, some of us might be the hand or the foot, but most of us in this room, for some reason or another, is connected to that same filling of the void.
Yeah.
And can you talk about that primal void and where it kind of began, and then we'll lead up to how that led to your great event?
Yeah, so I grew up in the South. I still live in Memphis, Tennessee, and I grew up in that area. Very conservative Christian upbringing. there was a ton of addiction to substances and alcohol on like my mom's side of the family, but my dad's side not so much. But my family, my immediate family, was apparently very buttoned up. There was no blatant acting out. There was also a complete lack of connection, and there was a complete sort of absence of emotionality or absence of intimacy, as in like intimacy. There was just none of that. So I thought everything was, conventional, and I was in church all the time and well-behaved little boy, and everything was sort of, going as I assumed it should go. And then my dad leaves when I was 12 years old pretty abruptly. Now, behind the scenes, there was a 7-year affair involved. And then I can talk about this retrospectively. I didn't have the language for it. I didn't get to I didn't develop the language for love and sex addiction until I was well into my 30s. But looking back, my dad was a love and sex addict. So he leaves and just blows the lid off all of the dysfunction and all the disconnection that existed in my family of origin. I then turned to, again, we're not a family that drinks or does drugs or anything like that, but something that works just as well to numb, just as well to medicate, and leaves, certainly left me just as disconnected as any substance. I turned to pornography, and then sexual promiscuity, and then relationship after relationship after relationship after relationship. So my path to addiction began when I was around 13 or 14 years old. I think by the time I was 14 or 15, I was a 1,000% straight up sex addict. I would identify more with love addiction than the sexual addiction part, because for me, it took a long time to realize this, I just was so desperate, and this is where it really qualifies love addiction, I think makes it distinct from sex addiction. I just was so desperate for belonging and for family and for love and for intimacy, like to be seen and known, and I just did not have that. I didn't know where to go for it. I didn't know that I needed it so badly. So I turned to that which was right in front of me. And then as I got to know sort of my family history, there's just patterns and patterns and patterns of that same behavior, on both sides.
And so you were married and you had children.
Yep.
And there are some events that you were acting out.
Yep.
We don't have to go into details if you don't want to about that, but you ultimately, your great event happened when your life just blew up.
Yeah.
And can you tell us about that recognition, that switch that flipped, that you're like, oh, this is what's going on, and there's something I can do about it?
Yeah, and I was thinking between services. So I was in college, and then was in ministry, and went to my own cringe school, went to seminary, and then went through a divorce in which I was completely emotionally absent and disconnected because I was so zombied by my addiction. So pivoted to literary studies, and I was a teacher in college, and I've taught college forever, and then go on to get remarried and have kids. And for me, everything was just good, bad, moral, immoral. So I couldn't figure out, and I was living a double life. I could not figure out why I was doing all these bad things, all these immoral things that I had so much shame around. There was no way I could tell the truth. Who was I going to tell? I was not in therapy. I didn't know there was even a community for sex and love addicts. I mean, I knew, when I thought about 12-step programs, I just thought AA. That's all I knew about, right? And I just masked and medicated and went on about and compartmentalized and went on about my life. Well, that caught up with me when I entered into an affair in my marriage that it blew up very publicly. So shame, criticism, these things became just a part of my life and comprised my great event. I was thinking between services, I had this moment when my stuff came out, this acute moment where I had about a 30-second window where I thought, like, this shame's too great, I can't do this. I think it was my higher power who gave me the intuition to call someone who had a very similar story that I knew about, and I called him. And I remember him saying, man, the walls in your heart must have been real thick for you to, and this is the phrase he used that haunted me, for you to traffic in ministry. For you to traffic in ministry and be doing all that you were doing. And I knew then, like, I'm sick. And that was a huge paradigm shift for me, too. I had to move away from a bad man trying to become good to a sick person trying to become healthy.
Which we know what that is, right? We can relate to that.
Yeah, that was huge for me. So then, I would love to tell you that I had a Damascus Road experience, right? And that every day thereafter but I was still in a massively toxic relationship, which was the product of my love and sex addiction, that did not terminate until 2023. Now, the entire time, God is gracious to me, and I'm experiencing healing, and integrity is happening, like parts are being integrated. But it wasn't until last year that when I was finally left alone, I had nothing to hold on to. I had not really grieved my divorce. I had not sat with myself, that I really had to face. And it haunted me. I was like, this is not just a breakup that I'm going through here. I am aching. I have such anxiety, such depression, such sadness. I was so melancholy that it pushed me to go do really, really deep work, trauma work, and work on my inner child.
And I know here we've talked about it before that there is a 12-step program called ACA, which is Adult Children of Alcoholics and Other Dysfunctional Homes. It's very much a part of my own personal story. And when you talked about this trauma work you were doing, and for those who don't quite understand either what ACA is and or what part or inner child work looks like, can you give us a little introduction of what that healing journey kind of looked like for you?
Yeah, so ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics. And see, again, remember, my family of origin, there was no alcohol, there were no drugs. But the subtitle for ACA is Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. I tell people all the time, like, if you're born of woman, you need to be in ACA. So I'd never understood anything about, I think maybe I'd heard the phrase inner child work. I had no idea what that meant. But ACA is really, to me, built around that and built around what we call self-parenting, that inner child. So I had been in ACA meetings earlier in the year 2023, and it led up to this intensive work where I was thinking about this too between services. I was given the gift of desperation, and I was so desperate to figure out what was going on, why I felt this hole inside of me, that they could have, when I went to this intensive, they could have said, hey, cut your right leg off, and been like, well, do you want it above the knee or below? Like, I'll do whatever you want. I ached for change. What I didn't know is what I was aching for was to reconnect to my little Corey, to my true self.
Can you tell us a little bit about what that looked like, and how did you find that, and how did you begin to be open to the idea that little boy exists and that you can't go on any longer ignoring him?
Yeah, so the way I describe the inner child is, and here's the first thing I'd say about it, you all have one. You got one. The inner child is that part of you, pre-trauma, pre-addiction, pre-pain, pre-abuse, pre-parents' divorce, pre-being bullied, that is purely love, artistic, imaginative, creative, receptive of love, giving of love, gracious, forgiving, can stand on the stage of life and celebrate, can weep. I mean, that's the true self. I had no idea what it meant to find him. I didn't know he was there, and I certainly didn't know how to reconnect with him. So a large part of my work, and this is everyone I've ever known who's done inner child work will say the same thing, I think. A large part of my work was to connect the actions, the addiction, with the wound of that disconnected inner child relationship, and that all of my acting out was really just me trying to, I tell clients this all the time because this feels so true for me. I couldn't understand why I would find myself in these same dynamics that filled me with shame, filled me with guilt, and always led to consequence. And I realized, and I really believe this, unhealed inner child wounds will leave you trying to pass the class that you failed when you were a kid. Like, you will re-enroll in those painful dynamics unconsciously to try to somehow pass that class, feel that love, know that connection, know that belonging, and you will do it to your demise unconsciously until you finally realize that that relationship or that thing you've turned to cannot give you what you seek. So there was this huge awakening that happened that realized I'm not a bad man. I'm just trying to pass that class. I'm just trying to sort of give myself what I was never given. That was revelatory for me.
Sorry, here's where the tears come in. Sorry, I loved your definition when you talked about recovery. You used it in a slightly different definition and context to your inner child. Can you share with us what your definition of recovery is today?
Yeah, so I'm a therapist, and I was in ACA, and I was recovery language was all around me, but I would sort of have this lingering question like, well, recovery of what? Like, what are we recovering? And then it dawned on me like, we're recovering our true self. I mean, this whole thing is a rescue mission, and I'm trying to recover my true self, my inner child. That's what I'm trying to recover. It's not just sobriety, right? That's huge. But it's to live a life of abundance and connectiveness, right? Connectivity with my true self, who I'm meant to be. That's what I'm trying to recover.
And I felt that way very much with my addiction too, as I was trying to kill that part of me.
Yes.
Right? And so like to go back and have that ability to recover that part and to heal that part and let that part be seen. In closing, to the person who's still out there who either doesn't understand this childhood wound thing or doesn't know where to begin or doesn't have any hope that they can recover that true self, what words can you leave with them tonight?
Yeah, the first thing I'd say is you do have a true self. You do have an inner child. I don't care how faint that feeling is, or if the story you tell yourself is that you can't know that little boy or little girl, you can. He's there. And I want to share after the first, I just told you, so someone came up to me after the first service and said, can I share a dream with you? And I was like, this is it. She's now in her 50s, a really sweet, kind woman. I told her, I was like, I'll never not know this story now. She said when she was 22 years old, she had a dream. She grew up in a home that was verbally abusive from her father and maybe even other kinds of abuse, and she never felt. She was completely disconnected from herself. At 22 years old, she started to feel these feelings come up very violently and volatilely. She didn't know what was going on. She had a dream that she was on a train. And this is a perfect analogy or depiction of what this reconnecting with your true self is. She was on a train, and she was watching the landscape go by because the train was moving, right? So this big window, and it was just passing. Then the train stopped. I'm going to freaking cry when I say it. The train stopped at a playground. And she's just telling me this like between services, right? Train stops at a playground, and she sees a little girl like on the swings, and this little girl stops and walks up to the train window, and this little girl puts her hand on the window, and then her in the train puts her hand on the window, and the little girl says, where have you been? Like, you got to recognize that that's kind of it. Like, your little boy, your little girl is sort of just knocking on the door of your heart. And the second thing I'd say is, not only does he or she exist, but you can know him or her. Like, it's possible. You can reconnect. I think it's a lifelong process. But with help, you can, even at a somatic level, like you can have a life of integrity where the part of you that faces the world and the part of you that faces yourself are in communication.
Thank you for reminding us that all of us here are worthy of that love, safety, and belonging. And I love our community that we get to do that for each other, that we get to welcome each other in. And even if our stories are different, We have so much to learn from each other, and so much we get to practice on this playground, right? This emotional playground. Thank you so much. I know you're going to stick around, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you tell the story of how you journeyed to recover that little boy that you talked about being on a swing and how the therapist took you through that?
Yeah. Thanks. So when I started doing this work, and this is where I need help. I don't know what to do, right? Really gifted therapist who knows how to do this work was taking me through some painful moments in my childhood and asked me to share a moment in which I felt really hurt as a kid. And I certainly had those moments, but nothing was coming up for me in the moment, except for this one image of me sitting on a swing. So my dad had built this tree house, which then he kind of tore down and made a swing out of. And I grew up in the country, so I had this gravel driveway and just sort of very rural. And I remember very distinctly, I probably was 8 or 9 years old, and I was sitting on the swing, and I remember being a summer day because I could see my bare legs. And I remember looking around, my dad wasn't there, and honestly, he probably was off working or having an affair. And my mom wasn't there, and my older sister, she wasn't there. And I just remember feeling very alone. And the thought I had was, no one is coming to get me. I'm just here, right? And the therapist said, do you think that every person you've ever hooked up with, every relationship you've tried to form, has been you trying to get someone to come up that driveway and get you off that swing? Yeah, I do think that's what's been happening. And she said, I didn't include this part. So she also had me, because a lot of times in inner child work, to tangibilize it, you'll use like a stuffed animal to represent your. So she had me. This was like some masterful therapy too, because this could have gone like a lead balloon. But she had me grab this stuffed animal and hold it close, and she said, "I want you to imagine you're the one coming up that driveway to get yourself off that swing." But then this is the part I didn't mention. She played Celine Dion's "All by Myself," which sounds cringe. Man, I literally was just on the ground holding my stuffed animal. So that was the beginning of every time I start to enter into a relationship. Because adult me, I will damage myself so badly. I, to this day, have so little, this is just me and my experience, I have so little regard for myself as 44-year-old Corey. I don't do right by myself. I don't much mind destroying myself. But I am a dad, and I do have a very strong protective fatherly part. So what would it be like before I entered into this relationship or made this destructive decision if I imagine holding my 8-year-old little boy self and saying, do I trust you with him? Would I put him in this situation? The answer is going to be, I don't. And that begins to be the process by which we can have boundaries, love ourselves, protect ourselves, right? Form healthy relationships. There's lots of stories like that. Yeah.
I was actually kind of hoping we would skip that story, Ryan. And it's mainly because, obviously this is some really heartfelt stuff. So again, thank you so much for your vulnerability.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Free. We do this every Saturday. So I hope you can come back.
Yeah.
You can also connect with Corey. Not only will he stay after for questions, but he has a great online presence. It's the Literary Therapist on Instagram. He can help you connect, but he shares this stuff on a daily basis. He shares from his heart, and he shares his kids, and he shares kind of this continuous road. So thank you so much, and thank you all for holding this space.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karie and Corey. I know this was a tough one in a good way for Karie. I know it brought up some stuff. I hope you sleep well tonight. And dude, I hope you consider, I would love for you to come back and join this community. I would love for you to give the message here. I would love for you to come back in some capacity and just go deeper into some of what you talked about, because I think it's so powerful. And listen, y'all, I do know we're a little over time, but it's Saturday night. What do you got better to do? You're not going to the bars. But before we do close, the way we close things out here on a Saturday night is with what we call heartaches. We start with celebrations, we close with heartaches, because sometimes we try to carry burdens by ourselves, and we try to shoulder it by ourselves, and we find out that we really suck at it. You don't have to do it. It's why you have community. It's why we have a God who hears the cries of the people. So if you're carrying a burden and you need prayer, some lifting up, some encouragement, well, we take 3 minutes for this. Again, if you're online, drop your heartache in the YouTube comments or the Facebook comments. We'll heartache with you there. And if you're here, you could just raise up your hand. Jerome will get you a mic on this side. Karie will get you a mic on this side. This time is yours.
Hi, Robin. Excuse me. I would just like to lift up someone who's very special to me that just got out of the hospital, and I'm praying for God's miraculous recovery with their physical health.
All right. Prayers for them, and prayers for you, Robin.
I just want to lift up all our folks in northern Colorado, and hopefully we're able to get some rain. So maybe we all pray tonight for rain.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Colorado's been on fire a little bit for you joining us online. You might not know that, but we've got some wildfires going, and prayers for all those affected. Prayers for rain. Thank you, Darren.
Yeah, I'm Cy, and I have both a celebration and a heartache. I came in a little late because I was out in the cafe cutting a cake. So my celebration is that I was at a gender reveal party. I have some friends that are having a baby girl. They found out today. So it was very beautiful, but I brought 2 cakes not knowing how many guests were going to be there. So there is a chantilly cake, and here's my heartache. If I have to take this thing home and eat it by myself, it's going to break me. So my prayers is that you guys will help me. Please eat this chantilly cake. It's out in the cafe, cut into slices.
We'll pray for that kind of gluttony. It's our favorite sin. Thank you, Cy.
Hi y'all, Teray. This could not have come at a better time. Ryan, thank you always for the work that you do for us. My heartache is actually for like our home and my wife. We've been doing some incredible boundary work and are just dealing with like the sadness. We're living in a really like heavy, sad house right now. So just pray for the light. We are, doing the work, but it's sad sometimes.
All right. Prayers for y'all. Thanks for sharing that with us, Teray. Vulnerability. Prayers for the household.
My name is Mary, and I've made a lot of progress in my career, but I want to make a very big transition, so I'm going to ask for prayers for strength for that transition.
Yeah. Lifting you up, Mary. Prayers for you.
My name's Mike. I would like prayers with relationships with my wife and my son. Just hoping that in my sobriety, the good Lord will bring us closer together.
All right. Prayers for the family. Lifting y'all up.
Hi, my name is Bella. Today I was remembering my mom. It's funny how listening to music could just take you to certain spots. And some good, some painful, some great memories, some bad memories, but music definitely takes you to places that you thought you'd never go.
Yeah. Music allows the joy and the pain to walk together, is what I find. Thanks for sharing that. Lifting you up. Jerome, you want to join me up here, dude?
Yes.
Before you go be like the strongest man in Colorado?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to join our online community for just a minute. You want to take the first one?
I will. Dr. Lacey. Dr. B is struggling with COVID. Prayers for healing. We miss you. We'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Get well.
Prayers for you, Lacey. Glad you're joining us tonight. Mark says prayers for Henry as he's pushing through last cancer treatment that was really tough on him. All right, Mark, we're lifting up Henry tonight. Prayers for him.
Christy. Prayers for my doctor appointment this week. Christy, we're lifting you up. We'll
Yeah.
see you soon.
Yeah. Thank you, Jerome, for joining me up here. Thank you all for participating in all the joys and celebrations, as well as the heartaches and hard stuff. We do it all together here. That's what community is for. Speaking of community, I'll keep this really short. If you have been impacted by the mission here, Breaking the Silence of Addiction, if you call this place home, or this is your people, your tribe, your community, whatever you call us, we do appreciate your generous giving. I don't have to manipulate you all. I don't have to try to come up with weird Bible verses to try to get you to give more, because I know that many of you give sacrificially. It's a spiritual practice in your life that you engage in because you want to see good in the world. And I believe good is happening here, and it does take funds to keep the thing going. Thank you for being a part of it. There's a few different ways to give here if you would like to donate to Free. The first way is you can download the app, Free Recovery Community. It's free to download, and there's a giving button on there. You can give monthly or weekly or one time, however you want to do it. We're really grateful for it all. You can also go straight to the website, freerecoverycommunity.com, and there's a giving button there. By the way, on the app, all the guest storytellers are on there, all the content's on there, so it's a cool thing to have. Or there's, of course, the giving kiosk right beside Bobby here by these doors for you cash people, and there's another giving box just outside of those doors. And as Jane Doe likes to call the tip jar, well, it's the dip jar, and it's just outside on this black table out here, and you take your credit card, and it's set at $20. You can't give more, you can't give less. We set it at that number because it seems reasonable, and you dip your credit card in, and you dip it out, and it lights up, and you get to feel good about your giving, and it truly makes a difference here. So thank you, thank you, thank you for being a part of it. Shall we go out with a prayer? Yes, yeah. Oh, yes, if you would like to, if you can't give funds, cool. Jump on Google and give a 5-star review, but don't be anonymous about it. Be yourself, your true self with it. Thank you, Karie. What's that? I didn't hear that, but I'm going to hear it in a minute. Oh, there you, even better. I love this community. You all are just conspirers. Okay, let's go out with a prayer. I would encourage you to just open up the hands. It's a sign, a symbol of openness. There's nothing magical about it. You're just welcoming in Spirit, universe, the God flowing all around us in this space, in your space, in you, through you, all around you. And you're open to God doing a new thing in your life and the world. If you don't know the St. Francis prayer, well, it's a beautiful one. And we pray it together. It's on your screen. It goes like this. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen. And grace and peace to you. We'll see you next time.